Hello again, everyone. Let's get into it. I've got two very lively gentlemen who do not lack personality. I'm going to try and turn it down for at least the first 5 minutes and leave the partisan hats off and just tell us a down-the-middle take on what a Biden re-election would mean for the economy and what a Trump re-election would mean for the economy. Woo!
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Andrew.
We know what you think of.
Sure, I'm very happy to. So I'm in the camp that thinks Trump would be a catastrophe as our president again. He's learned from his mistakes last time, which is hiring responsible adults who sometimes tamp down his policy desires and instincts. I unfortunately think he's the favorite to win. I think if the election was held today, he would win. And the question is whether something changes over the next 6 months. One of the things that's underreported, folks, is that Biden's main advantage is money, but they've spent $35 million in the swing states trying to boost his numbers, and it has had no impact, which augurs very, very poorly for the fact that money is going to swing the approximately 7% of genuine swing voters in those states. So right now, my projection would be Trump wins, some very, very bad things happen administratively and institutionally, but the effect on the economy would be unclear.
So I think the superficial analysis, particularly from people on Wall Street, Trump's better for the economy, and then they list all these policy things that he would do that would be better for the economy. But I think he would be terrible for the economy and terrible for the country. And I'll tell a quick story. And this happened in the White House, and it happened on a Wednesday. The reason I know it happened on a Wednesday, I was only there for one Wednesday, so I know it happened on a Wednesday. And it was him and Paul Ryan, and they're bigger than me, and they were fighting in the Oval Office. And Trump was putting his finger on Paul, and he was saying, "You work for me, you work for me." And Paul's looking at him like, I don't work for you. I'm in a totally separate article of the Constitution. I don't work for you. And Trump was looking over at me. He's like, "Is he right? He doesn't work for me?" I'm like, "No, he doesn't work for you." And Trump doesn't like that. And the people in this room that really understand the Constitution is what has made this economy. The predictability of the laws, the separation of the powers, the inability to create an autocracy in the country for the last 250 years has protected your businesses because the sanctity of the laws allow for the free flow of capital, and people own their property in this country. It's backed up by the court system, and there's 900 years of legal precedent. Mr. Trump doesn't like any of this, and he's an orange wrecking ball for this society. And he's going to come in with a group of people that believe in something called unitary executive power. And if you don't know what that means, you should Google it somewhere tonight. And you should understand what the Heritage Foundation believes and what Mr. Trump believes, that they want to expand and knock out the other two branches and make him uber powerful. And when that happens, you get what happens in every other autocracy, a really bad system and a lack of predictability in the laws. So yes, superficially, he sounds better for the economy, but he's a disaster for the economy, he's a disaster for the world, and he's a disaster for your business. And you got to be really careful. Can I just say one last thing? There are 40 of us that are speaking out against him. One of them was on the ballot with him last year, or 4 years ago. The president picked a guy named Mike Pence. Anybody remember him? He was the vice president. Okay, they were chanting "Kill Mike Pence" on the 6th of January in 2021. You know, Mike Pence said, "You know, I've had enough of this." Okay, and under no circumstances will I endorse or support Donald J. Trump. There are 39 other people that have said the exact same thing. I submit to everybody here rhetorically, let's say all of us work for a car company and we say, "Hey, this car sucks and they didn't build it right, it's going to kill your family." Or we work for an auto airline manufacturer, say this plane's going to fall out of the sky. Or we work for a drug company, said the drug's going to kill you. What is going on in this country where you have super smart, very patriotic people, guys like General Kelly who are not even partisan?
Okay, Anthony, I got to cut you off.
Okay.
I think we get it, and I think, for the record, I agree.
Sorry.
The institutions held last time. I don't know if the central bank and so on would hold this time, but we might find out. Let's switch it to Biden.
He's got a plan to end the central bank, by the way.
I've heard of that. Okay. Let's go to Joe Biden for a sec. I mean, I think the profligacy with the debt's probably not helpful.
I was really just getting started, by the way, just so you know. It's getting warmed up. All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
it's clear
Jeffrey.
you think Biden is better, but do you think there would be any economic pivots? Would Elizabeth Warren still be running herd over the financial markets? What would be different? It would be more of the same. Go for it, Andrew.
No, it would depend upon what happens in the House and the Senate. I mean, projections are Republicans take the Senate, and then the House is going to be pretty evenly split. But a lot of Biden's policies have yet to be fully implemented. I mean, they authorized $1.2 trillion, of which just came out that maybe 18% of it's been spent or committed or allocated. So they bit off a giant chunk, and then they're still trying to figure out how to chew it. So if you have a second Biden administration, then the other 80 some odd % of that gets deployed and spent in various ways. If Trump comes in, then Trump will probably try and pull that back. So I don't imagine any whipsawing in terms of economic policy, depending upon who controls the legislative branches. And I do want to say to you all, if you want to read more about Anthony's 10 or 11 days as comms director, he has a book out this week that goes in.
Don't hurt my feelings. Andrew, we're good friends. Don't hurt my feelings. It was 11 days. Don't chip me out of that last day. It's a big day. I got fired in that last day. It was a big day.
I had like a 10% cut.
Anthony, how do you feel? It's actually become like a noun, a very short tenure is now a Scaramucci of work. Like,
I think it's great. Listen, the only problem is people are very sensitive. Okay, I tweeted out that Liz Truss lasted 4.1 Scaramucci's, approximately 45 days. She got very upset. Okay. I tweeted out that Kevin McCarthy lasted 24 and a half Scaramucci's as speaker. Guy got very upset. I mean, these people are a bunch of babies. Just relax. We're doing a joke.
We've got all the big topics. I got to go granular for a second.
All right, go ahead.
Carried interest loophole. You have a hedge fund, right, Anthony? And you get that very favorable tax break. And every couple of years, they're going to repeal it because who doesn't want to take money away from the hedge fund guys and have you guys pay lower taxes than the rest of us? Do you see that being repealed anytime?
Is that for me?
Both of you.
So I'm going to channel David Rubenstein. He said, God has ordained, that was the 11th commandment on the tablets, that we're going to keep the carried interest loophole. I pay 50, I don't know about you guys, but I live here in New York. I pay 52% marginal tax. I'm a minority partner in my own life now. So the dollar comes in, 52 cents goes to Eric Adams, Kathy Hochul, and Joe Biden. I get to keep 48 cents for my family. I am totally fine with that. If they want to end the carried interest loophole, if that's going to benefit the society, I'm totally fine with that. Okay, we have a huge disparity in the society right now. And I don't want to be a rich guy living in a barbed-wired security McMansion while my fellow neighbors are suffering. So me personally, I have never complained about my taxes, don't mind paying them. I would love to audit the city or the state and see where the taxes have gone, because it doesn't make sense that we have the budgets that we have and we have the services.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like spending.
That's why he was my guy for mayor. It didn't work out.
Yeah, man, I would have been happy to open the books. Those would have been good times.
And they wouldn't want somebody like Andrew to open the books because, come on, it's bad.
Yeah. Yes,
Pentagon,
I was
$2 trillion. They can't find $2 trillion.
Yeah.
Come on.
So I want to comment on the dynamics of the economy. So you have capital on one side, then you have technology on the other, and they're commingling to accelerate the most extreme winner-take-all economy in the history of the world. And so you can take shots at addressing some of these inequities, but the inequities are getting more powerful and faster all the time. One thing I joke about is that AI is getting faster and smarter, and we are lucky not to get slower or dumber in any given day. Like if we stayed the same, it was a good day, you know what I mean? But then if you extrapolate that society-wide, we're going to displace millions and millions of workers, and even now major corporations are cutting high-priced employees because they're figuring out, wait a minute, I'm paying you $200, I can pay this person $75 and stack an AI on top of them, and voila. Or I can replace. I mean, there are 2 million Americans who work at call centers still. When will AI replace them? Now, what day of the week is it? People are like, oh, it's Tuesday, they'll get around to it by Friday. So there are all of these trends that are speeding up, and the question is, what does the real economy of the future look like if you're trying to prioritize human values in an era where we're going to lose in epic fashion to the machines. And all of the people are like, oh, we're going to work with the AI. We're going to reskill people. It's generally wishful thinking / nonsense / good for the press release, and then you go back and actually do what you're going to do within your organization. So the reason why I've been pro crypto this entire time is that, in my opinion, the only way out of this is to create a multivariate economy that rewards various human activities independent of whether it's actually capitally efficient if you measure it in just one axis, which is the monetary axis. So imagine a currency that was rewarding arts and creativity, and another one that was for nurturing and caring and education, and another one that was for health and wellness, and you had millions of people pursuing each of these activities. That, to me, was the promise of cryptocurrencies, and it has failed. It has failed because what crypto has primarily been used for, and I'm still pushing in this direction because it's necessary, but it's failed because it's primarily being used as an engine of financial speculation and as a hedge to collapsing confidence in fiat currencies. And that's a use, like congratulations, but it's not addressing any of the big picture issues that, in my mind, are just speeding up all the time. So we're here about future of finance at the 24 election. To me, that has to be the vision of the economy that we're moving towards as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Anthony, I'd like to ask you about that. AI's come up a lot today. It's coming up everywhere. What do we do with this risk of a whole bunch of just superfluous Americans? It's, sucks to be poor in America right now. What if AI, makes, another 10, 20 million redundant? How do we address this?
Well, I'm more optimistic, and I think what ends up happening is you get these S-curves that are transformative, and they never work out exactly the way the doom and gloom people say. And so we had that problem with automotive. We had that problem with factories and automation in factories. We had that problem, believe it or not, in telecom and delivery of mail. And so I'm a little bit more optimistic. There's a professor at Oxford by the name of Nick Bostrom. You may know who he is. He wrote the very famous 2001 memo about are we or are we not in a simulation. He has a brand new book coming out right now. I interviewed him on my podcast, and he's talking about what could be a deep utopia where you do have the people that are been displaced, but there's enough productivity in the economy where they're getting the universal income that Andrew's talking about, and all of a sudden people are actually, in a weird way, happier. And so that is quite possible. I'll just leave you with two quick things. Tom Malthus said in the 1840s we were going to starve. He left out all the technology, the exponential technology. We have more people dying from obesity-related illnesses than starvation. In 1985 at Tufts University, I had a professor tell me we were out of oil. Some of us in this room are old enough to remember peak oil theory. Oil, we're going to lose the oil in 2010. We have more oil than we know what to do with. And so I don't believe the gloom and doomers when it comes to people and innovation. I believe that we are problem solvers, and if we get the right leadership, moral leadership in government and in politics, we can solve these problems.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be optimistic. You're not the only one who has that view. Vinod Khosla, who I think we saw in Laguna Beach, predicts that we'll get to a point where you all have to work if you want to, and let's hope it works out that way.
Oh yeah, I think that vision of abundance is possible if you had a functional government, and then I'll just leave it at that.
Leaving out the hard part. We got to touch crypto because we all like it. Probably half the room hates it, but there's a giant crypto campaign. Vote crypto, and I know my reporter Leo is like, there's only one person who's going to vote based on crypto, but maybe not. Do you think, like we saw this movement in the Senate today, do you think crypto could affect the election at the margins?
Oh yeah, I mean this election is going to get decided by a razor-thin margin in probably 3 states. And the margin last time was, let's call it 60,000 votes in 3 states. So can you imagine that being swayed by some people staying at home because of something that they don't like the president's stance on, or crypto, or any of another number of other micro variables? I mean, 50,000 in a country of 330 million is not many, but it's certainly a much smaller number than our crypto enthusiasts in various parts of the country. And some of those interest groups are spending money, so it could easily be a tipping factor.
So, here's what I would say. if you read crypto Twitter or X, it's a huge deal. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I do agree with Andrew. On the margin, it could stop young voters from voting for somebody that's anti-crypto. So I would just say if you looked at a Nash game theory analysis, it would probably be better for you to be pro-crypto because you're not going to lose any voters being pro-crypto, but you may lose some not being crypto. But I'll just submit this to you. There's 2 movies playing at your local cinema in November on Election Day. One is Weekend at Bernie's. Okay, we know that. You know that, right? And the other one is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Okay? So you can choose between an elderly guy that's somewhat forgetful or a lunatic that needs a lobotomy. Okay, I'm going with the elderly guy, somewhat forgetful.
Fair enough. Okay, let's end on a high note. Backstage, Anthony was telling me he offered his names for KMF. Ask your neighbor if you don't know what those stand for. But apparently it's the New York Post. You can't do it again on stage, so look it up. But it was a good answer. But let's end with.
I already did it.
Yeah. Okay. Quickly, Anthony. How far are the Knicks going to go?
All right, so I'm an eternal optimist, and I've been waiting for 3 decades, so I'm going to say all the way. Okay? How's that? But here's the thing.
Easy applause line, man.
But here's the thing. If they don't go all the way this year, I think they actually have the chemistry in place for next year with a couple of changes. So I'm very happy, very optimistic.
All right, and my last serious question. Name someone in the finance industry in New York you admire, morally and as a sort of accomplished financial professional.
You want to go first?
I mean, there are a number, but I suppose given the context of where we are, I like and admire Mike Novogratz. I think he's his own freaking human being. He has his own judgment. He's made calls that have been right, wrong, popular, unpopular, but he's a stand-up, genuine human being.
So I love Mike, so since that was already taken, I'll say Larry Fink, and I'll just say this. The smartest people, when they get something wrong or they get new facts, they change their mind. And Larry Fink was very negative on Bitcoin and crypto. He spent the time and the energy, and he moved towards Bitcoin. And he had the most successful ETF launch in history this year with his Bitcoin ETF. And a sign of great leadership is getting things wrong, taking risks, being able to admit that you got something wrong, and adapt and pivoting. And I think Larry represents that.
Okay, we're out of time. Thank you, gentlemen. Please give it up for Andrew Yang and Moose.
Thank you, guys.